If insurance is supposed to protect patients and help doctors, why are both groups increasingly fed up? Today on Plastic Surgery TNA, that's Talking Advice, I'm going to give you an inside perspective as a board certified plastic surgeon who's chosen not to be on insurance panels. And here's why. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Plastic Surgery TNA, talk and advice with Dr. Earl Stephenson, board-certified plastic surgeon and facial aesthetic expert. Real talk, real results, real transformations. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Plastic Surgery TNA. I am your host, Dr. Earl Stephenson Jr., Atlanta board certified plastic surgeon. Welcome back for those returning. I appreciate your support. For those of you who are new to the channel, a big welcome. Here you will find truth and transformation. If you haven't been here before, you like what you see, I ask you to do just a couple of things for me. I ask you to like, subscribe, and share. It really helps the channel grow immensely. With that being said, today's episode is about out of network, out of patients. Why are patients and doctors fed up with insurance? Insurance has become the modern day gangster. They extort money in the form of premiums from patients, offering them all kinds of, quote, access to doctors. They then strong arm doctors to accept pitiful reimbursement for complex medical care, all the while sitting on piles and piles of revenue slash profit. It is frustrating for the patients who seek care, are often denied, have mounds of hoops and barriers to jump through just to get simple things such as excuse me, such as prescriptions, specialty appointments, so on and so forth. It destroys practices. The solo practice of the medical practitioner is almost an extinct animal, a dinosaur, because they pay so little. How can practitioners survive on a $30 visit from a patient when rent is due, malpractice is due, staffing, payrolls due, all sorts of other expenses are due, and you cannot survive on what the insurance company pays you. And we feel feel what we have to contract with these companies in order to see patients. Again, this is a broken system, and I'm going to sit here with you and go through why I don't, as a board certified plastic surgeon, take insurance any further. The first question I had to ask myself, what is insurance really doing? We have denial of medical necessary procedures, reconstruction, trauma procedures, sophisticated imaging. We have delayed authorizations causing postponement in surgical or medical care, or even cancellation. If for those of you who do not know what an authorization is, it's just like you think. You need authorization or permission to perform a procedure, surgery, a imaging, or some sophisticated imaging for a particular client. Insurance companies are gatekeepers in trying to control costs, and I'm with that. I'm with trying to control costs. And I'm going to digress a bit here. We as physicians, when we kind of governed ourselves, were bad. We got way out over our skis. We got greedy, and we did not control our own cost. We did not control our own profit margins. We did not make things affordable. And in steps the middleman, the business insurance person, who could broker deals between patients who are looking for care that is reasonable and physicians who need patients to run a business, but to temper payments so that it's reasonable for the physician to have a life and the patient to have a life. But it has gotten way out of control where that brokering is basically constricting the client or patient and constricting the physician and business, where the fat cat is the insurance company. So through pre-authorizations, just a method to kind of evaluate whether this procedure is necessary, they can slow the process, delay payments, refuse payments, and sit on the money. Or they can even flat out reject authorizations and say, nope, we don't think you should do that. And these most often are not people with healthcare experience. So, again, what is insurance really doing? Reimbursements, what I just kind of touched on, to the physicians are surprisingly low. At one point, when I did take insurance, maybe 10 years ago, I was probably getting 30 cents on every dollar that was technically generated. No business, whether it's a candy shop, a car dealership, or or a luxury hotel, can operate when you get 30% of what your expected or usual and customary fee is. So medical practices are really operating at a loss, and they just can't do that. I've known practitioners that had to use their own personal credit card to make payroll because they wanted to care for patients that had insurance, but the insurance company reimbursement was so pitiful. Or not even that, it's pitiful, and they take, oh my gosh, weeks, sometimes months to pay. And there are multiple phone calls as to when payments are expected. There are multiple delays in reimbursement. Oh, you didn't fill this out right. So you need to go do X, Y, and Z. When we followed, or physicians followed the instructions per the insurance company to a T. These are typically tactics to delay in reimbursement to physicians so that the insurance company can sit on the cash. So again, what are we doing? We're denying medically necessary procedures. We're delaying or flat out refusing authorization. We're delaying or paying incredibly low reimbursements. And then there's the time that's spent on paperwork and charting and filling out forms related to care, but not patient care. And that paperwork and that time burden seems to be increasing, which is crushing practices and crushing physicians. Insurance reviewers with no surgical or medical experience are making decisions on whether a patient should receive medical care, and essentially at times overruling board certified specialists with years of practice experience. So again, what are insurances really doing? I trained over a decade plus to make these difficult decisions. Yet I can be, when I did take insurance, overruled by someone who never held a stethoscope or yet alone lifted a scalpel. So one of the reasons why I don't take it is I had to ask myself, what are insurance companies really doing? Excuse me. Second, doctors are going out of network. And why? I do some things out of network, but I try to stay out of insurance altogether and have a concierge cosmetic practice. But doctors are getting a little smart. They go out of network. They still are able to see insured patients if those patients have out of network benefits. So what's that mean? If you are a patient and you get, or a person in the community, and you get insurance through your employer has an insurance with, I'm going to make up a name, Red Shield Black Tire Insurance Company. That insurance company has a set of physicians in every specialty that they are contract with to provide service. That's called a network. And that network is typically closed. Not every physician is in that network. So you, as the client or patient, can see this network of doctors depending on what your problem is. A lot of physicians are going out of network, meaning that they were in the network and they moved out of it, or they're just completely out of the network at all and never were part of it, but still will offer their services to patients. And patients must understand whether their insurance policy has coverage for out of network benefits. The reason why a lot of docs are going out of network is to one, regain autonomy. There's little to no interference with medical decision making from people who have no medical experience. We can streamline the workflow. We don't have to be beholden to all this paperwork and all these processes that just seem to be laborious and slow treatment down. It gives us a little bit of financial stability. You can control pricing. You can value your services. You can get paid for what you think your value would be. If you are not a physician, you can understand this. If you work as a teacher, do you want to get paid? And teachers get paid terribly, by the way. Do you want to get paid $12,000 a year? No, you don't. Your experience and education create and demand more value. If you are a plumber, same thing. If you are an airline pilot, same thing. You want to have value for your services. So you're able to set your prices that should be reasonable. And this is where we failed in the 80s as physicians to not be reasonable, but you set prices that are reasonable, that sustain your business, sustain you personally, but also is affordable to the patient. Lastly, you can, I wouldn't say guarantee, but typically there are better outcomes because there's more time to sit with patients, because you're getting the money that you have earned because of your experience and the value you provide, and you're able to actually sit down and plan and be more thoughtful to provide unhurried care, which can typically lead to better outcomes and higher quality care. When you're in a really tough insurance driven practice and your reimbursements on everything is so low, in order to keep the lights on in the business, you've got to see a ton of patients. So you're double booking and triple booking, and you're seeing the patient, and they have to wait an hour, and then they see you for 2 minutes, and then you're out of there. That's a bad experience for the patient, and that's a bad experience for the doctor, but that's what's necessary to keep the lights on. And it doesn't typically lead to quality care. Lastly, in these models of out of network physicians, it builds a trust directly with the patient. There's no middleman. You, as the doc, are talking with the patient or the patient's family and building a rapport, setting up the processes, you know, presenting the value, and let the patient decide whether they believe that is a reasonable, valuable value that you're offering, and you guys are in direct contact and working with one another without a third party whispering something in the patient's ear, whispering something else in the doctor's ear, and we are at odds with one another while the puppet master, the insurance company, laughs all the way to the bank, and the patient suffers because they have illness and a poor quality of life. The doctor suffers because he or she is burned out. They have financial stress and they have a poor quality of life. So out of network is a really good strategy for most physicians. And that's why a lot of physicians have gone out of network. So being out of network isn't about not being accessible. It's about actually, it's actually about being able to do your job and the job that you're trained for and the way it should be done without third party chirping from non medically trained people. Now, with those things being said, what are the pros and cons of opting out for doctors and for patients? The pros are you can get personalized care, you get customized timelines, more on your time. You can get transparent pricing. Hey, here's the price for your knee scope. It includes your surgery center, your recovery, your pain, your prescriptions, your follow up appointments. clear as day. You, as a client, decide whether that is something that is in your wheelhouse or not. If not, then you shop to the next physician who's out of network that may be more competitive or more along the lines of your price range. You can have no surprise denials or downgrades. It's almost horrifying to go through insurance, get set up with all the appointments, pre-operative, testing, ready for the procedure, and to come to find out at the 11th hour, it's denied. Or for, or worse, the procedure has been performed, patient is good, the payment is either delayed to the physician or it's paid and then not days, not weeks, not months, but years later, the insurance company comes back. They reviewed the payment and they want the money back. I mean, it's just no surprises on either end. You get the flexibility to combine services based on need, not codes. And what I mean by that, there's a language in third party reimbursement through insurance company that are governmental codes that identify a code and typically marry that diagnosis code to a procedure. Here, we're not married to this diagnosis code can only or must only be applied to these procedures. We eliminate that. The doctor uses his or her training and experience to come up with a diagnosis and an effective treatment for that, not based on numbers or codes. There are cons. That those pros sound great, but there are cons. Patients may pay more upfront or navigate reimbursement. What I mean by that is because this is an out of network situation, you're paying, you've contracted with the doctor for his or her set fees, you may pay more. So you won't pay for the $30 copay to see the specialist. Now the consultation with the specialist is $100 or $200. It's higher upfront fees. You have to, as the physician, and you opt out, and the patient is still within the network of insurance, but opts to use you as an out of network provider, you have to navigate reimbursement. Example. When I did this many, many years ago, I was out of network, took care of a trauma patient with a hand injury, did a lot of work. The insurance paid me as an out of network provider. It paid the patient. The patient decided I didn't need to get paid anything, and that money was theirs, and they kept it. So that's a con for physicians that if the patient receives the payment directly, if they are not a person of integrity, they could keep it. So again, just be aware of that. You still can probably get clawback as well if the insurance company pays you directly and they decided that they don't want to pay that fee or they pay that erroneously, then they could claw that back. So there still is that potential as a con, even as an out of network provider. You get fewer referrals because patients that use network or in network doctors tend to get referred within that network because it's cheaper for the insurance company. So they don't want a lot of people going outside of that network because they have to pay higher fees. So they try to get more people to stay in network. So for providers, the con is, or physicians, you're not going to get as many referrals from that particular network because you're outside of that. Patients, on the other end, of out of network services tend to, maybe misunderstand some of the rules and assume there are no financial options that are available to them in regards to getting these procedures done. And it can be just a little haphazard or bumpy. This is where the physician, as an out of network provider, provides clarity and has a concise process that allows the patients to thoroughly understand what their responsibilities are. And so that there are very few cracks in the armor. So we're not saying no to patients as out of network providers if that's where most providers are. We're saying no to a system that is failing them and that's governed and implemented by the insurance company. So, as a patient, what do you need to know? Out of network providers doesn't mean that's you're that provider is unaffordable. There are options for payment within a particular office. They may have rules and regulations of how to pay monthly or set up payment plans directly with the practice. They may offer financing with third party financiers, such as their local bank or more established and nationally known brands such as Cherry, Care Credit, or even Patient Fi. Or you, as the patient, may have a health savings account, which you certainly can use. So, just because a physician is out of network doesn't mean they're unaffordable or unavailable. Insurance doesn't always equal the best quality. It often equals the shortest reimbursement, excuse me, but not the best quality. So you need to know that. You need to know that you, as the patient, can ask for what we call the super bill. This is a checklist of what was done and what's to be done, and has the little codes, and you can submit the super bill on your behalf as if you're dealing with an out of network provider. Many surgeons who do revisions are out of network by necessity, and I'm saying surgeons, many plastic surgeons, and then some people are just totally out of network. They're dealing with medical surgical issues, meaning they deal, like myself, 90 to 99% of the time with aesthetics, where they're doing contouring procedures, as opposed to a person with a medical surgical problem that could be covered through insurance with an in-network provider, such as a burn surgery, a local burn on the arm. If you have out-of-network privileges or out-of-network benefits, rather, then you can use as the client, as the patient, an out-of-network surgeon, so that you can get the best person for that particular issue with a little to no red tape, typically. So remember, as the client or the patient, it's your body. You deserve the right provider, not just one in the network for your insurance or on your plan. You should choose, just like you wouldn't choose your wedding photographer just because they were in a wedding photographer network. Why should your body be different? You choose your wedding photographers. You want the best photographer to capture that special moment. You only got one body. What's the difference? You need to choose the best provider, whether they're in network or out of network, for your particular issue. So, with that being said, insurance companies, I'm not saying are completely the devil, but they're certainly muddying the waters. We've seen numerous surgeons on the internet. Dr. Potter, I believe she's a plastic surgeon. Uh, she's chronicled her problems with certain insurance companies. So we want to make sure that we understand, as plastic surgeons, that we have options. It's scary to go outside of the network and not be on insurance and do aesthetic surgery, because that doesn't really guarantee you a network of patients that could utilize your services. So it's a little scary, but it's so much more freeing. So consider that for patients. Your insurance, it can be restrictive. You may not see the best person for the job, or you may see the best person for the job, but they may not be able to practice medicine in a way that is for your benefit. They may be subject to the insurance company's rules and regulations as to utilization and what is deemed appropriate or not appropriate. So be very, very careful. Do your homework. Sometimes it is better to use an in network provider, sometimes it's not. And you, as the patient, have that ability to use an out of network provider. In my opinion, and I'll stand corrected if I'm wrong, whether you have out of network benefits or not, you can contract with someone who is not even in network and you don't have out of network benefits. Now, of course, I'm not talking about if you need a you know, a cardiac catheterization or bypass surgery, or you need some type of brain tumor. There's some things that just do not fit into this. But if you got a rotator cuff injury, you've got a torn meniscus, you've had a skin cancer removed and you need reconstruction of your face, you've had a burn, as I mentioned before, and even if you've had a breast reconstruction, these things can fall in and fit very nicely for patients who want to use out of network benefits, or patients who just want to just completely go outside of the insurance system and use direct providers who are the best at what they do. If you're in the position to do that, sometimes patients are not, and I understand that. So, with that being said, what needs to change? Insurance must reform. They must include physician voices. As physicians, we need to kind of start speaking out like Dr. Potter and other specialists. Patients must be empowered with information. We got to give them information. They've got, you as a patient must seek information, and don't be dependent on insurance company gatekeepers. Do your due diligence about your particular situation, your particular policy, your particular options for the treatment or treatments that you need. Direct pay medicine is growing, especially in primary care, concierge medicine, direct primary care, whatever you want to call it. It is growing. Not necessarily because as physicians we want to, but because the system just isn't working for us, and it's certainly ultimately not working for you. Encourage you to, as patients, become advocates for yourself and others. Educate and explore options. Please, please, please. Yes, I know medical care is very expensive. I get it. If you have the ability, the wherewithal, the financial resources, or stability to explore these options outside of insurance, I strongly encourage it, because I believe your experience would be much greater, and I do believe your outcomes would be much better. So, with that being said, that's it for this episode. A quickie, but I think it's an important and hot topic. So, again, let's share this episode. Tag your doctor in this episode. Let's break the cycle of silence about what's going on, and let's bring humanity back to healthcare. Again, thank you for watching Plastic Surgery TNA. I am Earl Stephenson Jr., board certified plastic surgeon. We air every week on Saturday, usually after 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please, again, thank you for joining me. If you like what you've seen, you can share, like, and subscribe. And lastly, if you want to work directly with me for any issue, whether it's a revision on a previous breast reconstruction, whether you've had a burn that is new, or you want to talk a little bit maybe about improving the quality of a burn reconstruction, or heck, if you just here for, straightforward, in a sense, cosmetic surgery, breast augmentation, eyelid surgery, then there's basically, give me a call. And my number is up here on the screen, as it usually is at the end of these, 770-466-4700. We look forward to working with you and providing you with outstanding care for your outstanding life. So, with that being said, until next week, please be healthy, wealthy, and kind. Until next time, peace.